Welcome to the Hybrid Attorney Podcast. We are your hosts, Devin Thorpe and Austin Marler. I am Devin Thorpe,
And I'm Austin Marler.
and I'm gonna do a little ASMR real quick. Can you hear that?
Sounds like you're taking a piss.
Um, so we have been gone we missed last week's episode because we were super busy, in and out of court with clients and stuff like that. So I wanted to play a quick little game called High Low Buffalo. Have you ever heard of it?
I have not.
So High Low Buffalo is just essentially it's like what is that? Have you heard of Happy Crappy? You just so you name one thing for you in the last week, but in this case it'll be 2 weeks. One thing that was good that happened, that's the high. One thing that kind of sucked that happened, that's the low. And then Buffalo is just a random fact. It's like not consequential, doesn't have to do anything with you, that you just like enjoyed or want to relay or whatever. So over the last 2 weeks since the last time that we filmed an episode, what is your high low Buffalo? And then I'll go.
My high, I'm going with finding a dog sitter for Bambi. 'Cause I was and still am super stressed about that because I'll be out of town a lot the next couple months on the weekends. Uh, and she's kind of a crazy menace. Uh, not the best on walks, not the easiest to get the collar and leash on her, and she's extremely strong for her size. So finding a dog walker that one Bambi would be okay with, and then two that could actually handle Bambi was super stressful. And I believe I found one that all she does now is like walk dogs, and she has two very large dogs of her own. So I think she'll be able to handle Bambi and can ease some of my anxiety that I'm assuming I'm going to have that first weekend away from her.
Yeah, I'm envious
My
of you
low.
because Christina and I need to find someone to watch Atlas and Cato in August when we go on our cruise. And I don't think it's gonna be as easy to find someone because Bambi might be strong for 40 pounds, but Atlas and Cato are very strong for 100 100 pounds. So
Yeah. I mean, you at least have like a yard though, so you could theoretically just have someone come let them out in your yard.
all right, what is your low?
My low the last 2 weeks, I guess just how busy I was. Like last weekend, I feel like I worked most of the weekend, so that sucked. It was super nice on the weekend, and I did nothing fun for it. Other than that, one thing about it, if I can't find something that's too low, it's obviously pretty good 2 weeks.
Yeah, you had a couple really good wins in court on this past Monday. I mean, I know that we're not going to talk about facts of cases or anything like that, but if you want to kind of talk about like I remember how overwhelmed you were feeling Sunday night or just all of Sunday, pretty much thinking about
Mm-hmm.
everything you had in court, and it seems like you did pretty well. If you want to talk about that.
But I had 4 cases on in 2 different counties. Uh, I don't really want to go into the just because I'd rather not cut it close to whatever. But all things considered, all of them ended up going well, and it felt good because it wasn't just like showing up and then like coming to a concession or a compromise. Like I actually had to make some interesting legal arguments that succeeded. So it was pretty fun getting to actually utilize that, not just argue facts, but get to argue a little bit of the law and get pushback on it from opposing attorney and the judge, and still like be able to hold my position pretty well against an experienced attorney, and then ultimately getting some wins for my clients. It was a good week, a good start to the week for sure. You've also had a win, so go ahead and go into that.
Well, I can go into it. Well, I guess I was going to talk about it during the thing, but yeah, it's tough because like I want to say the facts of the case to so that because I feel like it's a lot more interesting with the facts, but I'm not gonna go into it. But yeah, I without saying anything that would breach like confidentiality or ethics, I just essentially had a case that I did not initially think I was going to be able to win, and this case meant a lot to me because I really respected my client and I really wanted he was a very good guy and I definitely wanted to be a zealous advocate for him, but was unsure if the facts of the case were going to allow me to do so. And um, had that trial on Friday and ended up winning. And the other attorney on the other side, has probably 20 years of experience on on me. So it was a good way to start the weekend. And yeah, that's pretty much all I can say on that. What is your Buffalo?
The Buffalo is meant to just be something like just middle
Random?
ground, something that happened, or just something
Yeah,
random.
yeah. Like the way Google says it is, it's just a random and or interesting fact.
Stop. Something random. Getting to go to Barnes and Noble unexpectedly yesterday. Eating at a Mexican restaurant in the great town of Burlington, North Carolina, on the way back from a haircut. Just by chance happened to be right next to a Barnes and Noble, so I had to take advantage of that.
Can I
Got a
just
sick
tell the
Lego that's going to go on
listeners?
my desk.
Can I just tell the listeners the fact that you drive 3 hours every 3 weeks? No, round trip. It's probably more like 5 hours, right?
That's five because it's 2.5
Two and a half
one
each
way.
way. You drive 5 hours total every 3 weeks to get your hair cut because you stay loyal to the barber that hooked you up in law school. And if I don't know, like, if that's not loyalty, then I don't necessarily know what would be considered loyalty.
I say it's hard finding a good barber, and it's even I guess, like, in our profession, like, if I had a bad haircut and had court the next day, but, yeah, it's super hard finding a good barber. So I have one. He's a cool dude. So I've stayed loyal. It is becoming a pain to make this trip every 3 weeks because, like, that even if I'm not, like, working or doing whatever else, like, that's one of my days of the weekend essentially just taken immediately because by the time I usually book it mid-afternoon, so I have to wake up early, get Vandy situated before I go, take her on a longer walk since I'll be gone most of the day. I usually meet up with you and Christina, or I'll stop and see Frizz and KG. This really depends, and it ends up being a full day of the weekend used on that.
But you got a Barnes& and Noble run out of it with, and correct me if I'm wrong, you got like a Lego, did you get a Lego set? That'll play. And that's actually perfect for you since you couldn't even keep a real cactus alive, which is probably
Whoa! You don't gotta let people know about that. I had 2 cacti because I thought they would be easy to take care of, and I may or may not have overwatered them.
which is the only way you can kill a cactus, I feel like, but
I also gave them -3 sunlight. I was
okay.
supposed to buy, like, those little, like, ring lights that have the UV stuff, and I
I
did not.
actually just got a light bulb from Target, today that gives plants sunlight, and I don't know what I'm gonna do with it yet, but alright. My high low buffalo is going to be completely related to movies. And so my high is I saw Project Hail Mary in theaters last, was that last weekend that I saw that? No, I saw it
Yeah.
during the
No,
week.
it was during the
I saw it,
week.
yeah, I saw it during the week. I forget which weekday, maybe Tuesday or Wednesday. I had a bunch of clips coming up on my For You page for TikTok and Instagram and stuff, and I'm a fanatic moviegoer. I support keeping movie theaters open and stuff like that. So when there's a good movie and it's about to be spoiled on social media, I'll drop everything and just get tickets and go see it that same day. And so I saw Project Hail Mary, phenomenal. Christina came with me, and I could tell because it's sci-fi that, I was like, she definitely thinks that she's not gonna like this movie. If it were any other sci-fi movie, probably she wouldn't. But my boy Rocky came through, and she loved it. I mean, I think she was pleasantly surprised, and even when we got in the car, she's like, "Yeah, I definitely enjoyed that a lot more than I thought I was going to,"
I
which was
tried
a
telling
win
her
in my book.
beforehand in the group chat, that boy Rocky's gonna carry it for her.
My low was that last weekend I saw the new Peaky Blinders movie on Netflix, and for probably the last 5 years or so, I have been the biggest, like, not the biggest Peaky Blinders fan, but it is my favorite television show of all time. I've never rewatched a show as much as I've watched Peaky Blinders. Anytime I'm feeling down or like doubting myself, I'll just throw Thomas Shelby on the screen, and like just Killian Murphy, the way that he portrays that role, you just can't help but want to bet on yourself when you're watching Thomas Shelby rise through the slums of
Birmingham.
yeah, I was gonna say Birmingham, but for a second I was like, "That's Alabama." No, but it is Birmingham. Um, yeah, but they absolutely like, everyone's entitled to their opinion. I did not like how they handled this movie and the way that they finished the series. Have you seen it yet, Austin?
I've not, but I've been seeing stuff online about like Arthur Shelby's not in the movie apparently, and it was going into why and kind of stuff that that actor was going through.
Yeah.
But I've not.
Well,
But you saying that it sucked kind of
I think it could
deterred
have
me from it.
I think it still could have been great. I already knew that Arthur Shelby was not gonna be in this movie because when they were filming it, it, like, leaked that he was not on the cast, and, you know, that's obviously a loss, but I still think it could have been a phenomenal movie without him. It just was not in my mind, it was not executed. It did not stay true to, like, who I viewed Thomas Shelby is as a person or how he would act in circumstances and stuff like that, and it just kinda, like, let it down. So, it's gonna end up being, for me, like, the sequel movies of Star Wars, where I just pretend that it doesn't exist, just like how in Star Wars I pretend that, there is no such thing as, Force Awakens, Last Jedi, or Rise of Skywalker. So yeah, in my mind, Thomas Shelby is still a badass. And then my Buffalo, which is also movie related. Just the fact that the trailer for Dune 3 or Dune Messiah and the trailer for the new Spider-Man came out, and I'm the people listening to this will learn at some point or another, but you and I are both pretty big nerds, not always about the same stuff, but Um, we both like Dune a lot. I don't really know if you like Spider-Man or not, but you do? Okay. Yeah, and both of those trailers were phenomenal, and I'm looking forward to seeing those movies when they come out, um, this year.
Surprised
Actually, Dune
Lightbringer did not make the list.
I think I finished that longer than 2 weeks ago.
No, because the last podcast we did was top 5
Either
books, and
way,
you hadn't finished it.
our whole last episode was basically about Red Rising, so there's only so much I can talk about it. Um, but they're actually doing. Have you heard? Do you remember when Barbie and Oppenheimer came out on the same weekend, and they called it? Was it
Barbenheimer.
Barbenheimer? Yeah. So Dune, Messiah, and Odyssey, or no, sorry, Dune, Messiah, and Avengers: Doomsday come out on the same weekend this year, and they're calling it Doomsday. And I'm like, I'm all in. I'm probably gonna. I'll go ahead and get the bucket out.
Brother, that should not be shown on camera.
It was gonna make its appearance in the podcast at some point. It probably already has if people pay attention to the background of it. But I'll be showing up to the movie theaters with my my shy halud popcorn bucket. Anyway, that's high low buffalo. Austin, if you can introduce the topic for this week. We're both attorneys, by the way. We've not said that yet. It's an entirely legally related podcast where
Is it though?
apparently we don't talk that much about legal stuff. It's really just two guys yapping.
We related to it at least for one thing or
Here's
another.
some here's something legal. Austin, what's on the docket for today?
I'll request a continuance. But today we will be talking about arbitration, and I'm going to start off by kind of giving an illustration of one of the ways that arbitration is used through the lens of MLB, because that's kind of my introduction to arbitration before going to law school or anything was playing MLB baseball games. And always like when the off season comes, there's always like a chance to re-sign your guy, cut him from the team, or offer salary arbitration. And I always offered it, and I had no idea what it was. And then finally, I was like, "Oh, I'm going to look it up." So then, ever since then, I hadn't thought about it much until like going to mediation recently for a couple cases, and it kind of had me thinking about the alternative dispute resolution ways, which is mediation and arbitration. That's kind of what I want to talk about today. But what I know you don't have a ton of because we've talked about this a little bit in the past couple weeks. When you hear arbitration, what do you think of?
As a lawyer, or as like if I pretend that I had not gone to law school or work as a lawyer, what would I think it is?
Just what do you think the process is? Like, what is your understanding of it right now? And if you say none, then
When I hear arbitration, I essentially think of it as mediation. And I remember when I was a prosecutor working for the DA's office, there was a assistant district attorney who essentially took a case to trial, and the state was essentially representing the interest of a furniture store. Okay. And the furniture store was one of those ones where they give you the furniture and you do like installment payments or whatever. and so you don't necessarily own the furniture until you pay it off. It's like rent to own furniture. And we get all the way through this trial for the judge to take the contract, or sorry, the person had defaulted on it. So the furniture store wanted their furniture back. And
because they
the
had a security interest in the furniture,
yeah, well,
little
the
secure transaction stuff.
yeah, I don't even want to think about those implications. But then the judge takes the contract and reviews it, and there's an arbitration clause in the contract, and she immediately dismisses it. She's like, "This is not supposed to be in this court." And the assistant district attorney who was trying it was newer. I mean, they probably had like a year of experience, and they just, because ADAs don't have time, you've got like 40 to 200 cases on the docket. You don't have time to be reviewing a contract prior to calling something to trial. They just tried the whole thing only for the judge to be like, this was supposed to go to arbitration before anything else, and it hadn't. So the judge dismissed the case. So all of that is to say, I think of like you said, alternative dispute resolution, mediation. It's essentially, I think in a lot of contracts, a requirement to go to arbitration before you do any kind of trial or file any kind of lawsuit.
A lot of the times it shows up in a contract between like businesses that sometimes it's the only way that you could try to try to challenge a term of the contract or bring up an issue to where arbitration is the only resolution method you have. And whatever the decision at arbitration is would be binding. But then there's also ones like you said where you have to go to something like arbitration. If you don't like what happened at arbitration, you can appeal it and go through the court process. But based off of that, what do you think like the benefits and risk of why would people want to consider arbitration?
I I mean, I would think there's got to be some sort of benefit, at least. I mean, if since those clauses are put in a lot of contracts, but in my mind, like, is it a cheaper process or something? Like, does it save people money? I mean, you still need an attorney for arbitration, do you not?
I mean, you don't have to, but it helps. So doing the research on like the cost was one of the things that historically is was one of the benefits of it, but apparently there's a recent shift where arbitration is getting much more expensive to where it's even rivaling like long litigation processes. So that's less of a concern or less of a benefit. Another one is uh it's private. It's not going to be in a court record like that. Whatever the arbitrator decides, like it's much more private way of resolving disputes than going through the court process. And it's supposed to be quicker as well, rather than like I'm thinking in my head, I'm immediately thinking ED, equitable distribution, how that can typically take a year, if
But
not longer.
it's still a real judge though, right? That's
It doesn't
presiding
have to
over
be a
it?
judge. It does not have to
Okay.
be a judge. It
So
to be an arbitrate.
are they similar to magistrates then? Like how a magistrate doesn't have to go to law school in order to be a magistrate?
Yeah, from my understanding, from what I read, that is the case. Like it can be judges, it can be attorneys, just like a mediator can be. But most of the time when it comes up,
Just a quick little side
yeah, just
hustle.
like mediators that are attorneys, like just another way to make some money on the side. But I guess I'll go into a little bit about the MLB process, and then I'll go into more of the just arbitration because the way the MLB does it is a little bit different. So for like MLB, only certain players are able to request the arbitration. It's typically after you've been in the MLB for 3 years and before you've been in the league for 6 years. So year 3 through 6, you're eligible for arbitration unless you're one of the top players in the league, and then you're able to do it after your 2nd year. The reason for it in the MLB is because compared to other, like, professional sports leagues, the time that like your contract with the team that you're on, they typically have control over you a little bit longer. You're going to be on a rookie contract for a little bit of a lengthier portion than some of like NBA, NFL, hockey. So this is a way to kind of one, provide incentive to produce early on in your career, and two, reward players that do produce. But it also gives a way for to keep costs down for teams and owners by not letting like the free agency costs whenever you get to year 6 get to an absurd amount because you have that arbitration amount. Yeah.
Can I ask some questions? Because I don't know hardly anything about MLB or really professional sport contracts and just in general, and I'm assuming you know probably a lot more than I do. So when you sign on, you're signing on for a contract that is a term of years, right? So like you'll sign like a 1 year contract or a 5 year contract or
Yeah.
whatever, right? So the arbitration though, if it only kicks in from year 3 to 6, is it only applicable when your contract is coming to an end, or you can go to arbitration before that contract
So
has
whenever
lapsed?
you're drafted as a rookie, there's a set number, as I understand, there's a set number of years that that team has control over you, and I believe it's either 6 or the 8-year mark. And like part of that time, you're going to be in the minor leagues, whatever else. But once you get to the big leagues, once you get to that 3rd year of big league time, then you're eligible for arbitration. You may still have 2 years remaining on your contract, but you're going to be eligible to request arbitration. And the way it goes is the player brings a number that they have in mind for their salary for the next year or two. The team brings a number that they have in mind for the next year or two for the player. And sometimes the numbers can be as small as like I I saw recent last couple of years, one team went to arbitration over like a $50,000 difference of one of their best players. And everyone's like, why would you do this to one of your best players? Why not pay him that $50,000? But then you could also go to arbitration and be millions of dollars apart in what you request. So you make your arguments in front of the arbitrator. I don't know which is the correct way of referring to them, and they pick one of the two offers or proposals, and they can make no changes to it in MLB. So like you either pick the one number or you pick the other number. You listen to argument from both sides, and they're stuck and they're locked into that number for the next year.
So that's actually a lot less like mediation then, and a lot more like taking something to trial, because in mediation, you come in with these two different extremes and you try to meet somewhere in the middle. But here it's like one of these two extremes is going to be the one
The,
that is picked by
it's interesting.
the
Well, this
judge
isn't how arbitration
or the
works
arbiter.
everywhere. This is how MLB does their arbitration. But it's interesting you said exactly
Okay.
what you
All right.
did
Got it.
because it's not going to be two extremes a lot of the time. Whenever you're going in there, you're like, if I'm too extreme, my number's not even going to get considered, and they're going to go with the other one. But oftentimes, it brings the numbers a
Okay.
lot closer together than they otherwise would have been. Because you're like, I know this is
Okay.
the number I would really like. I know that's not that likely. I'm going to come down a little bit to what I think a reasonable number would be. And the other side's going to be doing that exact same thing. Because if your number's unreasonable, they're not going to go with that number. And like you're going to arbitration, effectively losing.
That
So it kind of
actually
narrows the extremes a lot more.
that actually makes a lot of sense.
But that's how the MLB does it. To my knowledge, I don't know of any other pro sports league that offers this. I'm sure some players could put this into a contract for how they want to negotiate their next deal, but I don't know of any other league that has like such a process built in and is open to anyone once you meet those conditions.
Yeah, and I'm thinking it's probably not super applicable to any player that is not like worth their salt. I mean, I would think if you have like a free agent, the like an MLB team is they're just gonna it reminds me of like how, there's this like elder discrimination in retail where once you reach a certain age in retail or service industries or whatever, companies are going to look to try to get rid of you because you're not as productive or efficient of a worker anymore. And so companies will try to drop you. Plus, if they let you stay a certain amount of time, then they have to pay you retirement or severance or whatever if they fire you. So they'll try to like cut ties. And so I remember when I worked at Target, they would recruit instead of promoting from the inside, like for people who had the most experience, they would rather bring in someone who is freshly out of college with no experience in the retail world and teach them how to do it than, offer a promotion to a 50-year-old that's been with the company for 20 plus years. And so to relate that to what you're saying, I would think that there's no incentive to go to arbitration with certain players unless they are your top performers where you are trying to genuinely keep them, but you don't want to have to pay them more than what they're due, versus like if you have someone who's maybe not as good or like they're not like your best performer or they haven't showed out for a couple years or whatever, wouldn't it be more of an incentive to just drop them and get someone from a college or something like that?
Well, they're going to be locked into that deal. I'm trying to understand that last question that you just had. Like,
So essentially, what I'm thinking of is like if you've got someone who, has kind of been like a bench warmer, or like when they do go out and get playing time or whatever, they're not performing to the best of their ability. Wouldn't it be more beneficial for a team to like just let their contract expire and not compete to keep them on the team by going to arbitration? Um, and just go ahead and pull someone up from the minor leagues that is younger and probably has more potential.
well, if they have a contract for the 6 years, they're going to, and if it's year 3 and they're arbitration eligible, you can't just say, oh, you're eligible for arbitration. We're just going to move on. I mean, they could move on from them and not and trade them or whatever else, but they're still going to have to pay them for the next 3 years, whether they send them down to the minor league or what.
Oh,
Because the point of the arbitration is to kind of provide like a stopgap between usually whenever the MLB players will be like reaching their prime, hopefully, and before their contract expires, or otherwise teams are going to have to pay a premium upfront a lot of times on these rookie deals and hope the dudes work out. Because like right now, like a top prospect,
okay.
if they didn't have this option of, oh, after the second or third year, I'm going to be able to make more money than what I'm making right when I get drafted, they're going to like, then I'm not going to sign a number up front unless it's a pretty high number. And teams are going to be kind of hesitant in doing that because you never know, guys will get hurt. Guys just aren't going to be as good as they were coming out of high school, college, whatever else. So it's kind of a way to, it saves money for, hopefully saves money. Or I guess not even hopefully. I'm not on the side of the owners here at all. I'm on the side of the players. But the benefits for why both sides agree to it is it could save money for the owners and it gives the opportunity for the better players, and not even just better players, but for players to make more money before their contract expires with arbitration. But going into getting away from the baseball stuff, uh, it's a similar process, not exactly how the MLB does it, where both sides, it's typically seen in business disputes where both sides will go in and say, this is what number we want in damages or whatever else. They make their arguments to a judge, but it's a much less formal setting than it is for like a trial. And that judge is going to be able to come to an agreement just like a judge would. They don't have to accept either side's proposal like how the MLB does it. They're able to come up with a final order. So whenever I was doing some research on this, what do you have a question in your mind right now, like that's that you think might be a
I, I
problem?
I had a question. Well, I don't know if this is what you're thinking, but do the rules of evidence apply
I don't
in
believe
this
so.
setting? Like, can you? Is there any ability to keep certain documents or records or
I'm,
anything
I'm
out,
sure there are some sort of
or is it just
guidelines.
like all here? Okay, sorry. So that's kind of where my mind got distracted. There probably is another question that should be on my mind, but I wasn't thinking once I thought of that
The
question.
thing that kept bothering me is enforceability of it. Because if it's not in the court and it's going to be private, so you're not entering it with the court afterwards, then what do
Okay,
you do?
okay.
And I know the answer now after looking at up that
So it's
question,
not
but
so like if you get a judgment in arbitration and th- whoever plaintiff or defendant or whatever doesn't, it would be defendant, and I'm assuming in most cases, doesn't pay that judgment, can would it not be enforceable? Like, do you not have the option to send it to collections or something?
or you can petition the court to recognize that arbitrated judgment as a court order to where you can do the contempt powers of the court. But then at that point, it's not private and it is public like another court order would be. Because that was when I was doing research, that was one of the biggest thing. I'm like, yeah, this is a good idea, but like, what if you don't get the result you like and it's in a contract where like it's not appealable? Like whatever is decided arbitration is final. And then
So if you're having to bring it into court, are you essentially having to do the whole trial all over again, or it's still like a final decision and
you're
you're just
you're
going for the
petitioning the court to
enforceability?
recognize that arbitration. Like if this is only in the scenarios where it's an arbitration, the contract says this arbitration is final. You can't appeal it. You can't take it to trial afterwards. So they would be just be petitioning the court to recognize the agreement in a court order. That way they could use the contempt powers of court to enforce it.
So what real world scenarios has arbitration and the MLB enacted, I guess recently, um, that would be applicable? I mean, how has it actually been utilized in the real world?
It looks like having this arbitration, most things actually end up settling, but one of the biggest ones from this past year is a pitcher for the Detroit Tigers, Tarek Skubal. I'm not sure how to say his name, but he's a back-to-back American League Cy Young winner. And he went to arbitration. He came in with a number that he wanted based off his recent performance of back-to-back Cy Youngs, like best pitcher in the American League. And the Tigers came in with a number that did not was not the number that he had in mind. So they ended up not settling. But like a cool story from this arbitration in specifically is it was reported that the pitcher for the Tigers brought his 2 American League Cy Young trophies to the hearing with him. I don't think he presented them like to the judge or put them on his desk, but like that was how it was initially reported to begin with. Like the hearing started and he put both the awards on his desk. I think that part ended up not being true, but I think it was confirmed that he had them with him to support his argument that he had earned the number that he was requesting, and ultimately he got the number he wanted.
He pulled one of these. This will be good. This will be worth it. Can you still
Yeah,
hear me? All right. So he came into court and was like this.
that's how it was reported to begin with. Uh,
He just sat down and set up his trophy like on on the
if
table
I'm
or
not
whatever
mistaken, someone
behind him.
actually did it recently, and like another uh big name MLB player actually did that and put them on the table.
I don't I'm not familiar with that award. What is that? Is that comparable to like a Heisman or like more like a like player of the year or
So
something?
baseball there's 2 leagues, American League, National League, and each league has their own American League MVP, which is most valuable player, Cy Young, which goes to the best pitcher. Then there's like Silver Slugger awards for each position. There's Rookie of the Year, and then there's Gold Glove and Platinum Gloves for defensive awards. But Cy Young is best pitcher in that league. So it's not.
I thought the Golden Gloves go to best boxer.
I mean, I believe that is the award for for the
I'm joking.
boxers as well.
I'm joking. I'm joking. Wait, so when you say the 2 different leagues, are you talking about, like, in the NFL, how they have uh
NFC and AFC.
yeah,
Yeah.
NFC and AFC, like, regionally? Okay.
Yep, there's National League, American League, and it's not even by region, really.
I think I'm surprised the NFL doesn't do this. I think a lot of teams could benefit, not like you said, I'm on the side of the players. It's probably better for the players for the things to stay the way they are now in the NFL, but I would think that the teams would benefit in the NFL from, paying out these $5 million contracts or whatever for like a quarterback who's gonna come in and not really do
Yeah,
much of
I'm gonna be
anything.
honest, this is where most of my research went. It didn't go into arbitration, it went into, like, sports arbitration, why MLB can do it, why other leagues don't do it, and stuff like that. So now we're getting down my alley where I can talk. So one of the reasons why it sounds like MLB can't do it, and they are the only professional league that does not have a salary cap. So what that means is each team can spend whatever, or a hard cap where each team can spend whatever money, and there's all the other leagues have a set number that teams cannot go over. They cannot spend more than a certain amount of money on their players for a given year, whatever else. MLB does not have that. Uh, so that's
What? Who sets the caps though? Like
for who? For the other
I mean,
leagues, the owners. Like it's a discussion between like the owners and the players association. There's a lot of talk about like a potential lockout for this upcoming year because the owners want a salary cap because the Dodgers are just spending outrageous amounts of money every year.
it reminds me of like in It reminds me of like in high school where, every now and again, I went to a public school and in football or lacrosse, those were the only 2 sports I played, but we would go up against, I live in North Carolina, so we would go up against Charlotte Latin, Charlotte Christian, Charlotte Catholic, and even though like because public schools have these districts you've got to live in the region to go to the high school or whatever. That doesn't apply to, Christian or private schools. And so these schools were not essentially offering scholarships to the best athletes to come to these schools. And because they're privately funded and have so much money, it's not only great sports programs but a phenomenal academic program as well. So they're superseding the districting laws and cherry picking all of these amazing athletes from the like 60 minutes or an hour range around them, and they ended up becoming these super teams where like their football teams were amazing, basketball was amazing, lacrosse was like best in the state, and just essentially winning back to back to back to back state championships in all their
What you
sports.
just described is the Los Angeles Dodgers and the MLB currently. They have an outrageous roster. I believe right now they have three former MVPs in their lineup, and they have multiple Cy Young winners, multiple times Cy Young winners in their starting rotation as well. So like they're spending more money than everyone, getting all the best players. They've recently found a new way to even manipulate that even further in deferring some of the money that they're going to be paying the players to where like for a certain year salary cap, like for this upcoming year, one of their highest paid player is going to be making not a ton of money, but in like 30 years from now, they're going to be making him an absurd payout to make up for a total contract. So like they're deferring his compensation to try and, even though there's no hard cap, to keep their tax down that they have to pay each year for going over a set number. But another reason why I looked into why other leagues don't utilize this arbitration is because MLB often has the longest team control over a player. So, like in the other leagues, their rookie deals aren't going to be the 6, 8 years long. So, if you do perform, you hit free agency quicker and can get that salary bump if you deserve it. MLB, that's not the case because you're locked into that team for longer. MLB is weird professionally in a lot of ways. They're the only MLB or they're the only professional sports league not subject to antitrust law.
But how can a baseball team be a monopoly?
The league, the
Oh, the
Major League
league
Baseball,
itself.
the league itself is the only professional league not subject to antitrust law because of like some absurd
And what went into
a
that?
1920 case where people like it's been brought up multiple times. And like when it was brought up for the other leagues, the court always found, well, yeah, they're subject to antitrust. MLB in the 1920s, 30s, whatever, it was brought, and the court said they're not subject to it. If Congress wants to change it, then uh, they're the right entity to change this rather than the court.
Why would these other leagues not rely on that
Oh, they
case
tried.
law
MLB just has it
from the
because the case
MLB
law
case?
literally lays out. It says something specific. It's the case is something called versus flood, I believe, but it's because the case law specifically carves out the MLB. Like it says, it. I'm gonna find the exact verbiage of this because it was interesting.
Yeah, I can tell you're getting your rocks off on this.
Okay, so the first one was Federal Baseball Club versus National League. Ruled that baseball is an exhibition, not interstate commerce, and therefore not subject to the Sherman Antitrust Act. And it was upheld two other times.
That is crazy. That is so not right though. It is the most interstate commerce activity I could ever think
Let me
of.
find the Flood v. Kuhn case, which is the most recent time that they've upheld it because people brought this up after the other leagues were ruled to violate it. But MLB still somehow. Okay, so the first one with Federal Baseball League is that uh not interstate commerce, whatever. And Flood v. Kuhn, which is the 1972 case, held this longstanding exemption of professional baseball from antitrust laws is an established aberration. Uh, the court previously held it. They're not gonna up or they're gonna recognize stare decisis. Removal of this is a matter for the legislature, not judicial branch. So this is the one time like, yeah, stare decisis, but whenever NBA, NHL, and came said we should be subject to antitrust, like, nah, you're good. Only professional baseball gets this protection.
I mean, I hate to be this guy, but like someone had to be getting paid off, right? I mean, there's literally no difference in terms of procedure and how a a national sports league operates. There's like no difference operationally between the MLB, the NFL. I mean, they all have teams in different states. They're all traveling across state borders. It is quite literally the definition of interstate commerce, unless all of these teams are incorporated in Delaware or like the, the same
Well,
state. I
none of
don't
the other
know.
leagues have a case from 1922 specifically saying professional baseball is not subject to this. So, like, I think it was such a. Let me find the exact language for the Federal Baseball Club because the other leagues relied on that case law, but it's only been upheld for professional baseball specifically. Let me pull up Federal Baseball Club. The business of providing public baseball games for profit between clubs of professional baseball players in a league and between clubs of rival leagues, although necessarily involving the constantly repeated traveling of the players from one state to another, provided for, controlled, and disciplined by the organizations employing them, is not interstate commerce. Why is it not interstate commerce, though? The business of giving expeditions of baseball are purely state affairs.
I just like disagree so vehemently with that
The
with that
transport
logic.
is a mere incident, not the essential thing.
Oh, okay. Just an incident.
The expedition, although made for money, would not be called trade of commerce.
Was this the Supreme Court? Who's sitting on the? And can you, I'm not familiar with who sat on the bench in the 1920s. Who? What justices? I just want their names said aloud on this
This one was
podcast.
written by
Tell me it's not my boy. Tell me it's not my boy. Gosh, what's his name? Who's that famous torts
Learned Hand.
justice
No,
that his name? Learn it.
no. This
Learned
is
hand.
the first one is by Justice Holmes, and the Flood v. Kuhn one is by Justice Blackmun.
Does it tell you the split? Was it a split decision? I bet it was like just a blowout. Everyone was like, "No, it's not. It's not. It's not
There.
interstate."
Oh, you're talking about for the first one?
I'm just talking about
For
in
the
general for both of them, since they
the Flood
ruled
v.
on
Kuhn,
in
this one
favor of
doesn't
the
necessarily
MLB.
say it's not interstate commerce. All they're saying is that based on they're recognizing stare decisis, it's not our job to change it. We're going to uphold the previous court's determination. If this wants to be changed, legislature has the power to change it.
But correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm pretty sure I'm not. It is the judiciary's. Uh, it is their prerogative to interpret the Constitution and what constitutes interstate
And they did in
commerce.
the first one. Oliver Wendell Holmes referred to baseball games as purely state affairs. The court concluded that profiting from local human effort and skill in the sport did not constitute interstate commerce or the movement of goods and services across state lines, and so the federal government had no antitrust jurisdiction over baseball.
That's a huge injustice.
Oh, this adds a little bit
Because they're
something
not
else. The first MLB commissioner was a sitting United States District Court judge, and he began as commissioner in 1920. What do we think about this?
Yeah. So maybe not anyone being paid off. I think maybe a couple rounds of golf amongst a US district judge and chief justices. You get a couple
I don't know if we
beers
want to be on
in,
a legal
you're on hole 6
podcast
and you're like,
shitting on the reputation of the Supreme Court. These ideas are only held by Devin Thorpe, not Austin Marler.
I'm just saying I don't think it. I mean, I think you agree with me too. I don't think it's right that baseball, the MLB, is not considered interstate commerce to the effect where they're not subject to federal antitrust laws. And this brings me to my next question: is that what makes it so that they're the only league that has no cap? So it comes full circle. I mean, I think I disagree with that, and I'll leave it there.
I mean,
without
saying that the travel of
saying
goods
anything else.
and the persons across state lines is merely incident.
Buddy, there for anyone listening, there is case law out there where because a farmer was selling dairy products or something and it was taking away from the revenue or profit of agriculture, or no, it was wheat or barley,
I
not
think you're right with
I
wheat and
don't
barley.
remember the facts, but because he was selling or not selling wheat and barley.
I can't
Was that
remember
the
exact,
fact?
but I
Where during
it's
the war, it was a case where generally put, he was just
If enough
living.
people were
And
doing exactly
the
what he
conf
was in the aggregate, it was going to affect interstate commerce.
yeah, and they were like, therefore, he's not allowed to do a private citizen is not allowed to do whatever it is he was doing because of this hypothetical aggregate, and that was deemed to be interstate commerce. But yeah, the movement of millions of dollars of merchandise that the MLB makes across state lines is
And
incidental.
this Wickard versus Filburn case is the one we're referencing, uh, where Mr. Filburn was penalized for growing wheat for personal on-farm use in excess of the federal quotas. The court ruled that Congress could regulate local. Oh, Congress could regulate, just like this. The court in Flood v. Coon says this is not a matter for the judiciary. Congress needs to do this.
But did the court did the court say that same thing for the NFL or the other leagues that brought these cases?
Well, hold on just one second. I'll finish the rest of the quote. The court ruled for the Filburn. The court ruled unanimously that Congress could regulate local non-commercial activity if it exerts a substantial economic effect on interstate commerce when aggregated. So the football one, where they said, unlike professional baseball,
Is this gonna
football.
piss me off? Is this gonna piss me I can tell from the way you're smiling that this is just gonna piss me off.
It's the reason that I said the antitrust exemption for professional baseball is specific to that sport and does not apply to professional baseball. That the court said that the majority admitted that the similarity between the two sports from a legal standpoint would probably have denied baseball the exemption if it were brought again, but existing case law had tied their hands in the absence of any congressional action. Blame Congress. Blame Congress.
So they're saying there was some sort of legislation put in place that deemed football or hockey or whatever interstate, but nothing was ever brought across Congress
I don't think
dealing with
Congress really
baseball?
addressed it for the other sports either. I think it's the fact that because baseball has the 1922 case that says not interstate commerce, the professional baseball specifically is not interstate commerce. The other leagues cases were brought in the 1950s, and they said, well, that the exemption from antitrust only applies to professional baseball. They even admitted that if that case were brought for baseball today and that previous case law did not exist, they would rule it interstate commerce, but they were not going to overturn that 1922 case that said the only way it can be addressed is through Congress.
If any law or case deserves to be overturned, it's that
What
1920s
what do you
case,
got on
but
me and you petitioning Supreme Court? We find us someone that loses in district court, the appellate court, and North Carolina Supreme Court. Petition for the U.S. Supreme Court, and we're trying to attack that 1922 case.
either that or probably the quicker path would be lobbying Congress to pass legislation deeming the MLB as
The
interstate
fact that it hasn't,
commerce.
there's something going on. I don't know what, but because surely we're not the first people. Or as soon as NFL, NBA, NHL lose on that, they're like, "Buddy, we're back." My life goal would be to cook the MLB and make them subject to antitrust.
But yeah, I mean, I don't even think that would be petty. I think that's just applying the law equally across the board. Okay.
But let's relate this to family law. And I talked to Frank a little bit about this one day while we were up in court last week.
Shout out Frank McFarlane. What is
I'm not
his
shouting it out.
TikTok name?
He
Um
because he was already flexing the engagement on us.
I would shout it out if I knew
I don't
the
know the name of it.
like the
That's probably
username.
the main
Do you
reason I'm
know
not
that?
shouting it out.
I think it's like King Law AVL, like Asheville, but either way.
Do you think arbitration could be helpful in family law? Because in family law, for like equitable distribution and custody stuff, mediation is required unless it's waived by the court. How do you think arbitration could come in? And I actually will preface that arbitration can't be used in custody, divorce, child support. So I'm limiting this very much to ED.
I think for ED it would be amazing. I was just thinking before you said that last part. I don't even if it was allowed in custody, I'm not sure how feasible it would actually be because like what are you going to do? Come in with like one side's going to come in with an offer for yeah, dad gets every other weekend and more time in the summer and dad comes in saying, "No, I want straight 50-50, 1 week on, 1 week off." Like, there's just like I think for monetary stuff or finances, stuff with quantitative data, arbitration would be beneficial for equitable distribution. I think for more theoretical stuff, like who's gonna get to see the kid when, um, it's not as applicable, but it probably would be applicable not only to ED, but also, like, alimony, possibly even child support. I mean, we have child support guidelines, so I feel like that formula is pretty concrete, but I think um, for spousal support or alimony and ED, you come in with one both sides come in with their own offer on how they think the marital assets and debts should be distributed. I think for the same reason that you were talking about earlier, there is an incentive to being realistic to try to get to try to be the one who your offer or proposed order is going to be accepted.
Say, and I want to clarify something because I don't know if I explained it well based off how you're wording some of the stuff. MLB is the only one where you go in with like two offers and
Damn it.
accepts only one of those.
I
Normal
forgot that.
arbitration, you
I for
go in like you present your evidence and the arbiter comes up with their judgment.
Yeah, you're right. I'm getting stuck in the mud. So the judge or the arbiter, they can deviate from the two from like or you're just essentially having a trial outside of court and the judge or the arbiter is gonna come to their
Yes,
own
that's how
decision.
I understood the research that I was doing. It made it seem like the MLB was the exception where it's you take in two separate offers and the judge has no, I mean, not the judge, the arbiter has no, I don't know if arbiter or arbitrator. Arbiter sounds right.
Arbiter is the villain from one of the Halo video games, and that's what I keep thinking when we say arbiter. He's like I think it's Halo 5,
Well, it's going to be embarrassing.
but arbitrator doesn't sound I don't know. Either way, alright, let me change my answer just briefly, I'm not gonna ramble on. I think arbitration would be more beneficial in financial cases if it were the arbitration that we see in the MLB. I'm not sure or convinced that it would be beneficial for family law if you're essentially just doing a trial anyway, it an informal trial. In fact, I would actually probably hate that as an attorney if the federal rules of evidence don't apply in these cases to where you can get anything in without any objections. Um, I'm hesitant to say that that would be beneficial. I think that I would like it a lot, though, if you had to come in with 2 offers and the arbiter is going to accept one of those 2 offers, and therefore those offers will be more reasonable than how they otherwise would be.
Formal, strict rules of evidence, such as federal rules of evidence, generally do not apply in arbitration.
I don't like that, but
I don't hate it. When I'm thinking about it less with like the evidence that you're going to get in because how much is it actually going to hurt for this arbitrator to have all the information rather than have to follow the rules of evidence? Like they're going to get the full story. And with property, how much is that actually going to hurt? Because you're going to be looking at how much money was paid for it, how much of it, how much improvements were based off like marital income. Like it's all going to be hard data. And it would be better for the person making that decision to have all this information in my mind rather than being able to finesse your way out of them having some of this information because it would hurt your side. But also thinking about arbitration for equitable distribution in general, this is the part that Frank talked to me about. And because I'd only thought about like if you file for ED or instead of filing for ED, you just do arbitration for all marital property. Frank said he likes the idea of it, but limiting it to certain pieces. Like if you're in a equitable distribution matter, people are separating and they're agreeing to a bunch of other stuff, but the house is the biggest issue. Going to arbitration solely on the issue of the house. And that way you don't have to go through the full ED trial on all your property. You have separation agreement with everything else, arbitration on the home. I think in scenarios like that, and it doesn't necessarily just have to be home. That's just the example that we kind of talked about. I think it would.
I mean, like just from our experience and practice, the house is always going to be the issue. Either the house or the retirement. I mean, depending on how much money's in a Roth IRA or a 401k.
Yeah, I think arbitration for like a single piece of property or a smaller group of property would, I think, it would be significantly cheaper than everything that goes into equitable distribution right now between all the stuff leading up to potential litigation, including mediation days that can get pretty expensive. But I like the idea of arbitration for equitable distribution. I might look at ways of trying to utilize that like in practice, especially with new people coming in.
Explain what you mean by that.
Like whenever we're getting consults or new clients before, like for a separation agreement, and they're like, "Yeah, I want to do a separation agreement. We're in agreement on basically everything but this." And I'm like, "Well, if they don't agree to it, the only way we can move forward to distribute your property is going to be through equitable distribution. It's a long process, blah blah blah." Or I could say, "How about we draft a separation agreement that includes how you guys would like the property distributed, and then include like a clause saying on the issue of this specific piece of property, the parties agree to participate in arbitration, not appealable arbitration, and see about introducing that rather than being so much."
Can you do that? I mean, I thought that the major preface. I mean, are you able to do that because it's a contract until it's incorporated into the
Yeah, and then
divorce?
you even in that contract, I feel like you could say once the divorce is finalized and the separation is incorporated, that arbitration agreement is incorporated by reference as well to like help with enforceability if for some reason something's going on. Like that's something I'm going to look. I haven't done the research into it yet of how applicable it could be, but I like that alternative rather than being, oh, you can do a separation agreement. If they're not going to agree to it, your only other option is to go through this equitable distribution process and hope you come to a consent order before that.
I'm not gonna lie, I did not even know that arbitration would or could be an option for financial aspects of family law cases.
I think it's something I would like to look into more and talk to people like Frank or even some people on our civil team. Be like, how could I start implementing this like moving forward? Because it kind of handcuffs us because like you make your argument and that's it. You don't get to go in and have pre-trial conferences, get an idea of where they're going to be, and while you're making legal arguments, if it's not appealable, how likely are they going to be to follow the exact letter of the law if they're even are held to that?
Would you rather do that over
Hold on
mediation?
just 1 second. Arbitrators. Oh, arbitrators is correct, not arbiter. That's a tough saying for this whole podcast. They are not.
I started with I started with arbitrator.
Yeah, no, I convinced you otherwise. They're not strictly bound by legal rules in the same manner as judges. While they should apply substantive law, arbitration awards are final and very difficult to appeal, even if the arbitrator misinterpreted the law, unless there is manifest disregard. So that does kind of handcuff you.
Yeah, I don't know if I like that in family law. I mean, I think it has a place in other realms of law, but I just think family law is already so messy. And I think I'm just thinking in terms of like, what repercussions would we face? Like, would we get bar complaints for choosing to go to arbitration over a trial? Um, if like we don't come out on top, you know, like would our competency be questioned as attorneys because I could just easily see how like someone would twist it into saying, you know, we didn't fight for them, we chose the path of least resistance or whatever. But at the same time, I think I almost feel like if you get the right arbitrator who does have a law degree and they did practice in family law for X amount of years, then it would be beneficial because they know based on their experience how a judge would come out on top, based on a given set of facts. But if you get someone who, you know, it doesn't have a law degree, they've never practiced family law, and they're just going off of their moral conscience or what they think, you know, should be done, um, based on their own biases, like I could see that being a disaster.
I think it does take away some of the predictability that you can. I mean, trials in court's not always predictable, but I think this is potentially even less predictable. But you said family law is more messy. I think this would make it less messy moving forward because you kind of do have to take like if you're agreeing to arbitration, you're kind of saying, I know I have all these deeply held personal beliefs and feelings and how I would like this to go in my argument. But if you're agreeing to arbitration, you're kind of having to make that realization pretty early on. Yeah, I have these feelings. I need to take my feelings out of it and just present the evidence or whatever goes, like it's kind of final. All right,
Let's bring it home.
to finish us off this week, I didn't come prepared with a quote. Did too much research on MLB's salary arbitration and almost exclusively on that topic and why other leagues don't have it. But our quote is coming from the Daily Stoic for March 29th, which is today's date. It is approximately 7:43 p.m., 57 degrees outside in the great city of Morganton, North Carolina. If you should ever turn your will to things outside your control in order to impress someone, be sure that you have wrecked your whole purpose in life. Be content, then, to be a philosopher in all that you do, and if you wish also to be seen as one, show yourself first that you are, and you will succeed. This is by Epictetus. What you got on that quote?
It reminds me of you are the embodiment of your thoughts, where at the end there it said, if you're gonna be a philosopher, like,
Show yourself that you are one.
yeah, show yourself that you are one, like, walk the walk if you're gonna talk the talk, and, you have to before you can be, you have to think that you can be, or like that Descartes quote, "I think,
Hmm.
therefore I am." Like, you are the product of your thoughts, and therefore, think accordingly because you're gonna end up following down that path.
All right. Now to officially end us. Over under 3 weeks. Will I have this done? Will it take me under 3 weeks or over 3 weeks?
I'm gonna say the seal won't even be broken on that box in 3 weeks.
Well, it's kind of easy to break it right now, make you lose that bet.
I'm just saying it took you, what, 3 months to take down your Christmas tree, and you wanna build a a stalk of
It's
bamboo in less than 3 months?
Yeah, it's only 300 something pieces, and I won't even have to take my
Where are you
Harry
gonna
Potter
keep
one
it?
off my Lego table
Where are you
and
gonna
put it on
keep
my
it?
desk at work. I want this and like some of the bonsai trees.
I was gonna ask I was gonna ask if some new room has accumulated since the cacti have died.